Hello, welcome to the Good Enough Homestead. Today we have a really exciting video for you. Danny, our pregnant alpine goat, finally gave birth to her kids, and today we are going to just show you that process. We're going to speed up a lot of it so that you don't have hours of watching time, but you'll get to see how the goats go through labor, the different steps that are there, and how the babies look when they come out, what the mom does with them, and then kind of some of the after parts of birth. So the first thing you'll notice is that Danny keeps making these funny faces. I believe those are with the contractions. I'm not completely sure about that, but she did it multiple times. The funny thing about her going into labor that day was Brad had thought that she might have been going into labor earlier. She had been laying down and he thought that was a little weird for her lately. So he had called me over, I came sprinting out, and she wasn't in labor. So then he called me again and he said, "I'm serious this time. She has that bubble that you talked about." So I had done a lot of reading prior to the kidding, and you can see that bubble right there on her. And one of the things that they had said was indicating that labor was imminent was this bubble. Well, when you see it, of course, that's quite obvious that she's going into labor. So the next thing that they talked about was this pawing of the ground. And I honestly didn't know what steps we would see first, second. I didn't know if they would be pawing at the ground days before, what would be happening. But honestly, by the time all of these steps occurred, it was obvious she was in labor. So it wasn't like I could look for those as an indication that she was going to go in the next couple of days. By the time she was doing these things, she was in labor. I had read, oh, you'll see this long dangling clear or amber colored rope if she's going into labor. Well, again, you already know that they're in labor when you see that. So it just made me laugh because I was sure that these were going to be signs that I would see, and then I'd be like, oh, she's going to go into labor. No, she is in labor when that's happening, which makes sense. So that's the bubble having popped in. If you look closely, you can kind of see like a little white area right there, and that's actually the nose of the first one, I believe. So right now she's doing that nesting that I told you about where they kind of paw at the ground, and it was actually kind of funny. She does look a little bit like a bird doing it. Right there, that time that she arched up, that's the only time I saw her do that. The rest of the time she didn't do that arch up. So I don't know if that would be something that you would regularly see with other goats, but she only did it the one time. Just a minute ago, you saw her kind of look at her side. They also talk about that as a sign of labor, and our goats look at their sides all the time. So that wasn't necessarily helpful or not helpful in is she going to go into labor. She was restless up and down, as you can see in this video. She goes up and down and up and down, which of course she's uncomfortable, so that makes complete sense. I'm going to go ahead and just let you hear what it sounds like when she actually starts pushing. So one of the things I kept wondering is she pushing? Because something that you'll also read or hear is that if they are laboring for more than 30 minutes and they seem to be having trouble, then you might need to be reaching in there to see what's going on. So as you can see, it's actually quite apparent, and Brad could hear it from where he was outside and came running over to see if he and the kids should come. And he ran and got the kids, and they joined me at a little window that we have. So now she's actually going to have the kids, so she's going to get a lot louder. And just like that, there's kid number one. It's hard not to be stressed out for them as they're making these sounds. These are your goats that you love and care for. But I also knew she was going to be fine, which she proved. I mean, she was she was just wonderful. So right away, you can see she starts licking the face. Now that's really good because there's going to be some mucus plugging up the nose, just like with human children. And if the mom doesn't do that, then you have to go in there with a towel, wipe down that area between the eyes and the nose, kind of just to get that mucus out so that the baby can start breathing. But I could see the baby was moving. You can see that its sides are actually going in and out. It was breathing, and she did her job beautifully. She just went right in there, started licking the face, and got her baby taken care of before the next one came out. So in another minute here, she's going to start pushing the next one out. But all the way until then, she's really just taking care of this first baby and making sure that it's fine. So I was standing at the ready, wondering if I was going to need to rush over there. But again, it's just really apparent that I did not need to. So again, she continues to lick while waiting for the next one. And right here, we start with the next one. So it actually didn't seem to be quite as stressful for her. You can hear that she's not as loud, and it was much quicker. You can see that bag kind of coming out of her. It's a little bit more red, but it wasn't a problem. So now came the second one. And just like with the first, immediately she goes over and starts paying attention to baby number 2. So you can see at this point, Brad and the kids come in. She seemed comfortable enough at that point that I felt fine letting them actually in the door. And then Brad and I were sure that we were going to be needed. So we sat there with our gloves on and the towels ready to towel them off. But as you can see, she never stops paying attention to them. She licked them completely dry. You'll see here in a second when they get up that she also had already done the umbilical cord. So one of the things that we had read or been told was that if they don't do the umbilical cord, you need to go ahead and snip that to about 2 inches in length and dip it in iodine, all of that kind of stuff. But she had done that. We didn't even see it happen. But she had already nipped the umbilical cord. We did go ahead and dip it in iodine later, just to kind of help prevent infections. You'll see that she's got something dangling from her. That's the placenta. So you can see that little red bag, which then burst. And at this point, it just stays there for a couple hours, honestly, that red rope that you're seeing. And you don't pull on that or anything. You just let it come out on its own. So, and then you'll also notice the umbilical cords on the kids. And again, don't pull that off. Just let it go. It'll dry up and fall off. And then the placenta, if she doesn't pass that placenta, that's also a problem. But you saw hers already. It's already out. And now she just has to get the rest of this out, which again, takes a couple hours. There's no stressful sounds after that or anything. It just seems to kind of naturally come out pretty easily for them. Here she's just continuing to clean them off, which is very important because, especially since goats have their babies in the colder months, they can catch chill and freeze when they are wet. So we were lucky enough that she had her babies during the day and they were able to be completely dry before the really much colder temperatures at night. And all things considered, the baby goats are so quick to start trying to stand. So you just saw them try to stand a little bit. They fall over about a bazillion times. And it's pretty cute to watch. Their back legs, it's going to look like something's wrong with them. You might think, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with the back legs when you watch them try to stand originally. And that's just normal. So she continues to lick them for quite a while. I took a lot of that out. But one of the things they recommend that you do, which was so important, was to feed them molasses with warm water. And this is a 2-gallon bucket. Brad went and got some more water, and I think it was 1/4 cup of molasses that he put in there. And she sucked down a gallon of it in about 28 seconds. So she really needed that. She was very excited to have that. And then the rest of the gallon that was in there, she worked on the rest of the night. But originally, she was very, very thirsty. So that's important for the mother for recovery. And also, a little bit after that, you can give them some grain just to kind of get their strength back up. After she had taken care of her thirst, she went back to the babies. She just kind of continues to lick them. They continue to try to stand multiple times, followed by periods of rest. One of the babies had gone over into the corner at one point, couldn't back up, so I did have to help a baby get out of the corner, and then I put some straw over there so he wouldn't continue to get stuck. We did end up with one boy and one girl. The boy is named Turnip, the girl is named Sweet Pea. The girl is actually a little bit bigger than the boy, and the boy has the darker markings on his face. You can see here that they are finally both standing. They don't try to nurse before then, of course, so they really, I guess that must be why they're so motivated to stand up. They want to eat. So when they finally were both standing and able to walk over there, they started to investigate to try to figure out how to eat. And that was just instinctive right away. You can see this one is trying to find it. They actually had a little bit of trouble at first, as you would expect, I suppose. So you'll see the baby goat kind of sucking on different parts of her. She lifts up her hoof when he's getting in the wrong area, and it's always super careful about the babies. She was amazing about that. But right now, the baby is sucking on her side and all kinds of places, and she was so patient with them. She never nipped at them. She never yelled at them. She just sat there. Very patient mother. Another thing I had read was that the baby should eat within the first couple of hours of life. So if they aren't eating, you should try to help them find the teat so that they can go ahead and start. You see this one baby over here is resting, and I wasn't worried yet because I think at this point it had only been an hour, and the first one was already trying to find out how it could feed. So I waited and did nothing because I wanted to be as hands-off as possible and let them have their bonding time. That's another thing that you shouldn't be doing is trying to handle the baby goats and kind of getting yourself in there. They really need these first couple hours of life to just really bond, and the mother goat will really take care of them. So there's not much that we need to be doing ourselves. Here's what the baby goats sound like. So this one that's a little bit curious about me is Turnip. That's the boy. You can tell he has the darker markings on his face. Actually quite cute. Their tails wag the entire time, just constantly. So zoomed in on the tail for you a little bit here. Okay, at this point, the first one had finally been successful finding the teat and starting to nurse. So that was kind of a sigh of relief for me. And then I was just waiting on the second one. I waited the whole time. She didn't find it, and I had to help her find it. So here you can see she's trying to nurse on the shoulder and all kinds of other places before she ever makes it. So I helped her, which was kind of funny because she resisted me a little bit. I just kind of put her over there next to it so that she would stop going in the wrong area. I didn't put her mouth on it or anything like that. So when she finally figured it out, she just got right in there as well. We didn't have any other problems. I took this little clip just so you could see the awkwardness that is the baby goat legs. So they just look like there's something wrong, and they're not. They're just new legs. They firm up pretty quickly and start walking really well. So here's how they look day 2. You can see they're already looking much fluffier and walking really well, feeding really well. They just progress really quickly. So by day 2, I was feeling much better, much less worried about how they were going to do. They just seem a little sturdier on that second day, obviously. One thing I had forgotten to mention on the previous day, after she was done with the main part of the birthing and had cleaned off the kids pretty well, I had moved them up to another spot in the stall so that I could clean out the lower part of the stall. So your mama goat will have lost a bunch of the fluid from the bag, and then the blood that you're going to get with the placenta and just in general. So the straw or whatever bedding you're going to use is going to be pretty soiled. So it's important to change that and get some fresh straw out there. So while I put them up there and kind of sectioned them off, I went ahead and changed that out. And then I actually just leave them in this little section at night as well, so I can bring my other 2 goats in to the bigger stall. But then during the day, I let the other 2 goats out and then let them roam the entire stall. But now it's nice and fresh bedding for them, and this part was already dry bedding for them, and we hadn't had her in there during the birth, so it never got soiled during that time. And here we are, day 3. They look pretty similar to day 2, but again, the farther you get from that first day and that really frail looking baby goat, the happier you are. At this point, they are munching on a little bit of that hay that I left for Mom, just a little bit. They also have pooped and peed, which you should probably watch for just to make sure they're doing okay. They like to sleep up high, so we have a little hay bale in there to cover up a corner of the barn that has a little gap that lets some air in, and they always sleep up there, which is pretty cute. And again, this one is Turnip that is in the front right now. You can tell he has the darker and broader stripe, and then the one in the back is Sweet Pea, and they're Alpine goats. They are a little bigger than what you would see with the dwarf goats, and on March 30th, Mary is due, so we will have that kind of comparison for you later on when we see how big her goats are and how it goes with her. You can see they're a little bit more playful now, more confident. They scratch, they do that little jumpy thing that you just saw Turnip do. They approached me, which is pretty fun, and just generally starting to get that really cute baby goat vibe going on. So there's actually a lot of interest in how we chose the baby goat names. So we had one boy and one girl, and I think depending on how many you have and the genders, that can kind of help you decide how you're going to name your goats. So for us, one boy and one girl, we wanted something kind of cutesy, some kind of a theme. So Brad and I came up with several types of names. So a couple of things that we use to help us decide. We think it's cute when you name them other animals. So, for example, Brad's first suggestion was Moose and Goose. So Moose would have been the boy, Goose would have been the girl, which just, of course, would have been hysterical when you go out and you say, "Hey Moose, hey Goose, come over here," and your goats are coming over to you. Another thing that we thought about using was favorite book characters. So Brad chose the name Roland, and I chose the name Eleanor. For him, it was Roland from the Dark Tower series, and mine was Eleanor Oliphant from that book. The third was more beloved childhood characters. So I had chosen Anne of Green Gables and Huck Finn, if we were going to do that. The names of monsters are another popular thing you can use. So we were going to do Yeti and Nessie. And then finally, names for foods, vegetables, flowers, trees, sweet treats, anything like that. And that's how we finally came up with Turnip and Sweet Pea. And those two just stuck. And Anastasia is super excited to call the girl Sweetie. So every single one of us voted yes to those two names out of all of the names that we had chosen. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did and you wouldn't mind, please just hit that like and subscribe button down at the bottom, and then you can be notified when we get new videos, and you can see Mary when she goes into labor. And in the meantime, I'm sure we'll have plenty of cute baby goat videos for you to watch. We are also still updating the homestead, trying to give it that cottage feel, and we've got some workshop videos from Brad. So lots to check out, and we hope to see you around here again soon.